a request. Delerium. I desperately require a bibliomancy. I Ching style. I have a dilemma regarding my job hunt situation. I won't say exactly what, but can you wrap those yarrow stalks or throw those coins? However you cast the hexagrams these days. Tell me what the vibe of the moment for my job hunt is, so I can best pour my energies in the right way. And congrats on the meta-delusions we are all in now. Delerium! Thank you for your kind words. I will do this for you. Here goes. We slept in the clear dark sound of diamonds falling in your head. We were all best friends in our grandparents' time all across Arabia and Europe. We're all descendants of our fathers who read the headlines and maybe read about a boyhood friend or some guy he didn't know that was done and in some desert somewhere they tried to go when they got older could learn how to train families to leave home and put them together again. If things got hairy, we race and be good pumps, watch movies and learn real quick about each other. Don't make noises that might wake up folks onto you sometimes. Don't talk about assholes before they find where you belong. Try to go through life with honorable dealings. All things considered, we're all morals without morals. We're all deserters. We're all sons who had to knock their parents down, or that's how I heard and tell them. Sleep a lot, drink real good, eat real good. Try not to fall asleep right off for 1 second. It's hard, come on, yells. As tough as I am, I've been out there with you. At least I know you haven't, so shut your damn mouth. Somebody who's taught. Implore your brethren not numb their own ass like I see too many doing, but not very smart ways. Original goodness, we gotta stand our ground with a recourse. ID ain't nothing losier than a lazy bum-ass monkey. Shovel, scrape, sand, bury bodies, dig abandoned houses, it's saying the news. I heard it, people line up around, people standing like grenades all over the you say, you say, you say, you say. Y'all hear that Isaac Brown, J.R. Michael Copeland, major cases around the moves, major cases around the bodies buried under this shitty shit walking our dog's now the only ones sticking up for us are our DGI. I know where we going, what's gonna happen. Get ready to go anyway. ID, get unwinded and take out your gunner. Tell them what I know about walk toward me, fucking redeeming soldiers. Cause I know you're afraid if you push them, they get nasty. Gas burn clear across here, burning in my eyes, tripping off shit and reg. And I can take them to me bunker, put them to sleep and roll them out of here and start to set you up again. Lots of strolling. Sleeping dogs like cars parked there about a block away from him. His first warning was when one came near. It did not slow or turn or try to go around him. Whatever corporate America was doing was working so very well that these people were just walking right past him, each getting closer and closer until he could see their faces in the window or his. Their faces that were just like his. He yelled off until he could hear someone on his cell phone saying, "I'm standin's right here." He stopped at the point and risked putting his hand up through the window, or maybe he put his whole head through. Pushing on it with his hands, he built like his were inside the robot from The Robot with Robert Cummings because his face looked so much like his own. Because he already had this blinding spurt of activity, reminding himself of all the times in his life this happened generationally. Itchy Henry went back to Omaha. Nitchy Henry went back to Omaha. Nitchy Henry went back to Omaha. I know things that are you. Milton from Bram Stoker Goes to Mars recorded everything you ever said to him on a recorder. Itchy Henry went back to Omaha. Snaggletooth Joe, whose family was not quite sure whether to call him Snaggletooth or Chucker Charles because he sported two front teeth like those things you found as floss at the bottom of your jacket pocket when you tried to brush your teeth as a kid before bedtime, but it was only after he turned away and set off down the sidewalk on his skateboard that something came out of the car window. A stray dog got scared away by the bigger dog. Someone yelling for help in Italian from down a side street, the voice fading after he got closer, and then even fainter into nothing. And then nothing at all. The street ended on the other side of a huge retaining wall. A hillside to one side and then condos immediately below. Nobody claimed this particular unclaimed hillside because he would have been brought around by security if he had just stepped down off of it. But wait. Where was security? He was going now for it, putting his foot down hard on the top ancient brick of the retaining wall, hoping that it would hold him up and let him out over the edge, because descending this hillside at speed would surely humiliate all these people who had got out their cars and stopped on the running board of their car 5 feet away from him as if this were some kind of safari park ride, see the biggest cow in America, or the lonely chicken. They were getting out their pictures and telephones. He fell hard just then onto his back on top of the sloping bricks. A camera flashed and then shot off. A woman stepped back from them all worriedly beyond the headlights pulled in the street. He scrambled up onto his knees just as they ran over him with loud gasps and howls. Machines! Little! Grum! He felt landing water on him as they went over him again, feeling locked up tight all this time in a prison he could only break out of by running away into the dark woods and into his own mind whenever he wanted to escape. But who? Where? Fat Paul's nephew was calling now from somewhere nearby, but who was Fat Paul? Who was anybody? And where would one go? There was a fire at people's homes, but they were so far away now. There might not be any police at all. Not anymore. Perhaps the other 3,000 plus dead would find some other sort of justice in the case, or would not find none at all as they tried to live lives free of any kind of obligation. He alone had somewhere else to be from right now, freely manipulated by paper on one hand, while maybe a little white lie on the other. He was nothing without more choices from an hour ago. But today there was no terrain in which to climb that wall, and no one else was coming along to help him, so he crawled across it again anyway, trying to get home from wherever it was that he'd been put this morning, when a well-lit section appeared between an apartment building and a shower curtain store as suddenly as a view screen lured you onward to meet the threat represented by alien cracklingers. He'd never heard anyone call them Racklingers, because why waste time not walking across a weird cloud field sliced open with storm spearing canyons like this? Cloud so thickly covered you could walk through them almost, and should have done so long ago while there was still some time before he'd been called back and made pay for 4 years of home confinement, when he could not remember ever leaving the apartment, but he knew he had because someone told him long ago about what happened with when Agnes Kiefer died. He'd been 15 and her mother, a Swedish lady who drove across America once and who made these wonderful cookies that were all tied up in strings of pearls, had come over for dinner, and Sandra Tsinglo had been there too. First for both Agnes's mother and Sandra came here almost every night, and her mother had wanted to know where Sandra lived outside of the mission across town, painted 20 feet high above the street. If you stood on a ladder to look up at it, where Jesus hung out with the poor people who were all mad about communists, except when Jesus picked one out for himself, like Lance Duggan those first 8 years after Nixon took office. Even so, Lance's sisters went along for whole weeks in the springtime, calling the county jail the camp. But his mother somehow always convinced Lance to get back into street government anyhow. Not that Lance was ever any kind of communist, or even knew what it was anyway, but as Jesus himself might say, we know what's good for this world. Maybe Bobby left the shower curtain store for a moment. One more reason not to talk on your cell phone. And here Bobby would have come up in the picture, walking casually across the street with his hands in his pockets. Yet he... Viewer, excuse me, have you thrown the coins yet? Delerium, I'm getting to it. Here's your hexagram. Looky there. What do you make of this, Terry? You sure are being peevish here. Delerium, Oh, what does it look like? Terry, were you born this way, trying to find your cereal? But before Terry could answer at last, delirium. So saith the American Bible Society. Reader, thus Jesus drank a poison disguised as urine out of a sewer into his mouth, and not once deliberately said, "What is true? What is true? What is true?" Viewer, it's just one of 64 hexagrams. Pick one, and pick one of the 6 lines. And then is there a message in what those words say about that particular hexagram? And does a particular word stand out in that instance as a hexagram without a message beyond itself? And if so, is that word not its own hexagram, or is it an entire page in the book? One might even say then, by asking this question, that there is no meaning in this question, only dualities of language. Delirium! Yes. We've been down this road before, haven't we, Terry? Just recently, mostly. I think that we found a few crumbs on another section or two back, but we should review some basics. A form of writing whose creation was fundamentally contingent on words which were formed first out of the meanings of natural speech sounds made by human tongues. English language is largely spoken. You pronounce words thus. Its physical form, a rectangular thing made out of many pencil-like things with pointed ends. Also, writing instruments, though these were really invented by someone named CTO3 according to my book, and its means of reproduction generally a process in which ink or part thereof was applied to paper. This did not necessarily mean tree pulp, and it might a synthetic form safe to use in universal service. A robot might even have been employed to produce it so that serfs could get jobs on robot-made paper-making machines producing paper safe for universal mass use thousands of years from now, which then tended to form printing presses stable enough to print press along larger and broader presses verified from time to time by burning. It then followed from here that the printed page, whose mechanical design certainly contained references to certain line shades and aspects, described 3 dimensions plus perhaps 2, and it was now routinely copied across it like brass rods, on the reverse side of which more text could be burned into iron plates if one were so interested. This always remained an inefficient method, since one had to use wood pulp mixed with ink of some other kind, and so forth, much more slowly than any pressing technique involving paper as our single means of communication. Or this did remain an efficient method for continued production in areas where no paper existed. Possibly over 3/4 of worldwide population moved folk from Africa to Asia via Europe between 1550 and 1700. Anyhow, at this time, very little labor cost was incurred in comparison with costs of manufacture, which is why I did not hesitate to tell Bull Dunwoody whether whites or blacks. I took every comment on matters muslin too seriously until Bull Dunwoody appealed repeatedly for fairness, just as Ahmed Rissam was begging me for light hearts many years ago, and during those years at my home and away from his own, Mr. Dunwoody's popularity was growing rapidly and growing well-deserved, for he was dedicated to improving the lives and chances of both his fellow blacks and his fellow non-blacks. And whether jazz in new forms defined those years for me, and certainly benefited himself after his education was done. Sellus had taught them all I had heard him say about mean-spirited men who labored beneath grave assumptions, and had learned a new language of love both for their countrymen who might not share their beliefs, and those who did, along with other God-fearing followers of what he considered the true bull, as he came to understand it, sometimes correctly, sometimes mistakenly, as being the truth. Bull Dunwoody spoke often with me about theology, but when he spoke, African language sometimes I could not keep up, but usually he spoke of things that astonished me. Impossible concepts like souls had somehow reached North or South America from Africa by wind or other means millennia before humankind set foot there. How he drew attention to what he called the value and blessing of having three legs, about which one should never get upset but only appreciate, reevaluate over the years. How an alligator is a very close relation of the crocodile, though they differ only in the position of their first toe when closed. How God begot man as purposeful right. To conclude, here is the hexagram and changing lines related to my viewer's question. 1. Carrying offense. 4. Dedication. 6. Judgment. 8. Blessing curse. 9. Strut. 16. Culture needed. 19. Threat. 21. Radical views. 22. Tolerance needed. 24. Mourning needed. 25. Humanity. 26. Message needed. 27. Expression needed. 32. Juxtaposition needed. 33. Allegations of the best. 38. May cause weakness, for talk of threes and more becomes commonplace.
Oh. Quadruple punctuation.
Third, 9 hopes are written on water. So my last testament reads, I fled away from something. If this something's important, it's important only for certain people. Ahimsa is my last plea, speaking truth to power. How many people are there? How few can replace scientists who succeed? Only those whose hands will work for them will suffice. So may God spare us all. I'm late already. Consequent space I like. It changes when different people move in on it.